Houthis have issued a warning to Israel and the United States amid reports of a potential Israeli attack being planned against Iran. Reports of US non-essential personnel and family members being evacuated from regional countries, including Iraq, Bahrain, and Kuwait, were followed by a Washington Post article citing unnamed officials indicating that the moves were being undertaken in anticipation of an imminent Israeli strike against Iran. The soaring tensions follow an Israeli naval strike conducted Tuesday against Ansar Allah, a member of the Iran-led Axis of Resistance coalition that has been engaged in missile and drone attacks against Israel since the outbreak of the war between Israel and the Palestinian Hamas movement in October 2023.
I said in the cabinet that the weapons will take care of themselves. We'll fight with what we have. But we will not survive if Israel becomes a vassal state. We are not a vassal state. We're the independent state of the Jewish people, and we will do what we need to do to protect us. Iran began to be the potent Islamist force in the Middle East, and basically to replace the Arab world as the engine of attacks against Israel. They were committed to destroy Israel for a simple reason. They're committed, first of all, to conquering the Middle East. And they identified Israel correctly as the only real force that stands in their way locally in the region, because no one else is fighting Iran. The only ones who are willing to fight Iran and are fighting Iran is us. The only ones who are keeping the Middle East in place, as opposed to collapsing before Iranian aggression, is us. We have a president in Washington who's committed, as he says, and as he said to me many times, including just recently, we can't allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. And I said, I absolutely believe that, devoted a good chunk of my life to prevent that.
Reacting to the reports, an Ansar Allah source told Newsweek that the group had adopted a heightened state of readiness as it was already essentially in a state of war with the Zionist enemy entity due to its aggression and siege on Gaza, followed by its aggression against Yemen. In this regard, we are in a state of constant readiness and are working to escalate our operations against the usurping entity, against the backdrop of the escalating massacres in Gaza and the worsening humanitarian situation there, the Ansar Allah source said. We are also at the highest level of preparedness for any possible American escalation against us, the Ansar Allah source said. Any escalation against the Islamic Republic of Iran is also dangerous and will drag the entire region into the abyss of war, the source added. America has no right to attack the countries of our community and our region in service of the Zionist enemy entity, which is considered the primary security threat to the region, the source added. It is certainly not in the interest of the American people to become involved in a new war in service of the Zionist entity.
They don't want to give up what they have to give up. You know what that is. They seek enrichment. We can't have enrichment. We want just the opposite. And so far, they're not there. I hate to say that because the alternative is a very, very dire one, but they're not there. They have given us their thoughts on the deal, and I said, it's just not acceptable.
Meanwhile, the United States is scaling back the number of personnel in the Middle East as the tensions between longtime foes, Israel and Iran, mount. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has green-lighted the departures of military dependents across Northeast Africa, the Middle East, and portions of South and Central Asia. President Trump is committed to keeping Americans safe, both at home and abroad. In keeping with that commitment, we are constantly assessing the appropriate personnel posture at all our embassies, a State Department official told The Hill in an emailed statement on Wednesday. Based on our latest analysis, we decided to reduce the footprint of our mission in Iraq. Hegseth has authorized the voluntary departure of military dependents from locations across the CENTCOM AOR. CENTCOM is working in close coordination with our Department of State counterparts, as well as our allies and partners in the region to maintain a constant state of readiness to support any number of missions around the world at any time. The scaleback of the number of U.S. diplomats in the Middle East comes amid indications that the U.S. negotiations with Iran over Tehran's rapidly expanding nuclear program are stalled. The U.S. military has personnel in the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and other countries in the region. Meanwhile, Iran threatened to target U.S. military bases in the region if conflict breaks out, while President Donald Trump said he was less confident about reaching a nuclear deal. Tehran and Washington have held 5 rounds of talks since April to thrash out a new nuclear deal to replace the 2015 accord that Trump abandoned during his first term in 2018. Since returning to office in January, Trump has revived his maximum pressure campaign on Tehran, backing nuclear diplomacy but warning of military action if it fails. All its bases are within our reach. We have access to them, and without hesitation, we will target all of them in the host countries, Iran's defense minister Aziz Nasirzadeh said in response to U.S. threats of military action if the talks fail. God willing, things won't reach that point and the talks will succeed, the minister said, adding that the U.S. side will suffer more losses if it came to conflict. The United States has multiple bases in the Middle East, with the largest located in Qatar. Iran and the United States have recently been locked in a diplomatic standoff over Iran's uranium enrichment, with Tehran defending it as a non-negotiable right, and Washington calling it as a red line.